2 weeks before New Year's, our living room looked like a holiday commercial that had been edited by someone who hated joy. The tree stood in the corner like it was trying to audition for a better family. The garland blinked politely. The candles pretended we were classy. And my wife, Claire, had that very specific energy of a person who's excited, but also would like to emotionally detach from you by February. She was moving around the house in a hurry, placing snacks on a tray like she was preparing offerings for ancient spirits. "What's all this?" I asked, watching her line up wine glasses with military precision. "Girls' night," she said without looking at me. "Nice," I said. "Are you summoning them, or are they arriving naturally? Just be normal tonight, okay?" That was my first clue the night was going to be abnormal. I leaned on the counter, arms crossed. Define normal, like breathing? Or are you asking for a full personality upgrade? "Don't start," she said, sighing. "I haven't even started. This is the trailer." Claire finally looked at me. Her makeup was done, hair perfect, outfit carefully casual, the kind of look that says, "I'm not trying to impress anyone, I'm just coincidentally flawless." "You're being weird," she said. "You're hosting a council meeting," I replied. I'm responding accordingly. She rolled her eyes and reached for a bottle of wine. "It's just the girls. We're gonna talk about the year, goals, New Year stuff." "Ah," I nodded. My favorite genre. People who didn't hit their goals rewriting history as growth. "Please," she said like a prayer. "Just go play your game or whatever." I didn't even game. That's how committed she was to the narrative of me being a lazy couch ornament. But I let it go. "Sure," I said. "I'll be in the other room, existing quietly, like a piece of furniture." "That would be great," she said. We stared at each other for a second. That tiny pause that used to be playful in our relationship. That pause that used to lead to a kiss, a joke, a quick squeeze on the shoulder. Now it was just a pause. "Okay," I said finally. "Have fun." She nodded, already moving again, and I went down the hall. Not angry, not hurt yet, more like curious. Because when your wife says, "just be normal," it's rarely about your behavior. It's usually because someone else is about to misbehave, and they want you off stage. The doorbell rang around 8. First came Mia, tall, loud, and permanently armed with opinions. Then Jordan, always smiling, always supportive, always the first to ask invasive questions like she was doing a wellness check on your soul. Then Paige, the quiet one. Quiet people are dangerous. They observe. They store evidence. They swept into my house like they owned stock in it. "Oh my God, your tree is adorable," Jordan squealed, touching an ornament like it was a newborn. "It's a tree," I said. Mia laughed. "He's in one of his moods." I smiled politely. "I'm in my home. That's the mood." Claire stepped between us like a diplomat preventing war. "Babe, we're gonna be in the living room." "Perfect," I said. "I'll be in the other room, practicing being normal." Jordan giggled like that was charming. Mia smirked like it was pathetic. Paige just watched me for half a second longer than necessary. I went back to the office and closed the door. Not fully, just enough. Because I wasn't born yesterday, and I wasn't raised by wolves either. But I had learned something important about groups of friends. They don't gather in December to talk about candles. They gather to talk about you. At first, their voices were just background noise. Laughter, clinking glasses, little bursts of "oh my God" and "literally." Then Claire's laugh joined in. A real laugh. The one I hadn't heard in weeks. That was the second clue. Because when a person stops laughing with you and starts laughing without you, it's rarely a coincidence. It's usually a choice. I tried to focus on my laptop, emails, work, anything, but their words kept slipping through the hallway like smoke. "You've been carrying so much," Jordan was saying, voice syrupy. "All year," Mia chimed in. "Seriously, you've been shrinking, like you don't even realize you're doing it." Claire made a soft sound, not agreement, not denial, just receiving. Paige spoke next, calm and clean. Do you feel like you've been living for yourself? There it was. That little question that sounds like concern, but isn't. It's a crowbar. It's designed to pry. Claire hesitated. I don't know. I mean, I love him. Jordan. Of course you do. But love isn't the same as freedom. Mia. And New Year's is the perfect time. New year, new rules. I sat back in my chair and stared at the wall like it was going to give me an answer. New year, new rules. That phrase should come with a warning label. Paige. What do you want your life to feel like next year? Mia laughed lightly. Like she's not chained to a routine. Jordan. Or a person. Claire. He's not a bad person. Mia. No one's saying he's bad, but sometimes good is still heavy. Jordan. Like an anchor. Mia. Exactly. A sweet little anchor. Paige. You can't rise if something is holding you down. I blinked slowly. A sweet little anchor. I was in the office, listening to 3 women compare me to nautical equipment like they were planning a yacht trip. And Claire didn't interrupt. Didn't say, hey, that's my husband. Didn't laugh it off. Didn't change the subject. She just existed inside it. I stood up quietly. Not to storm in, not to explode. That's what a weak man does. That's what they expect. That's what they'll later describe as controlling. No. I stood up because I suddenly felt like I was watching a play about my life, and I'd been cast as the villain without auditioning. I walked out of the office and down the hall slowly. Their voices were clearer now. Jordan. You've been accommodating him for years. Mia. And what did you get? Comfort? Routine? A man who thinks being stable is the same as being alive? Paige. Sometimes you don't know who you are until you're alone. Then Claire's voice. Quiet. Almost embarrassed. I don't know who I'd be without him. And that scares me. That line landed in my chest like a coin dropped into a deep well. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. And it wasn't the kind of honest you share when you still believe the 2 of you are on the same team. Jordan. That's the point. You're scared because you've been holding yourself back. Mia. You've been living small so he feels big. Paige. It's not his fault necessarily, but it's your life. Claire didn't answer right away. There was a silence, then the sound of her wine glass clinking against something. And then she spoke again, softer. Maybe. This year really is about choosing myself. I stood there in the hallway like someone had unplugged the air from the house. Choosing myself, sure, because apparently in modern romance, there are only 2 choices. Either you choose yourself, or you choose the man, like he's a prison sentence. I stepped back into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Because if I kept standing there, I'd either laugh or break something, and both would be used against me in court. I grabbed a bottle of water, closed the door quietly, and took a sip. Then I stared at the reflection in the black glass of the microwave. I looked normal, calm, like a man who had no idea his marriage was being rebranded behind his back. A few seconds later, I walked back toward the office. And that's when I remembered I'd left my jacket in the closet by the front door. I didn't need it, obviously. I wasn't going anywhere. But something in me wanted to walk into that living room for exactly 5 seconds, just to see her face, just to see if she would flinch. So I went to the closet, quietly. When I reached the front door area, the living room was in full therapy session disguised as festive fun. Mia was on the couch, one leg tucked under her like she was hosting a podcast. Jordan sat close to Claire, shoulder practically touching, her hand on Claire's arm every few minutes like a supportive parasite. Paige sat in the armchair, relaxed, watching everyone like she was collecting data. Claire sat between them, wrapped in a throw blanket she didn't need. When I stepped into view, Claire looked up instantly. For half a second, her face did something strange. Not guilt, not fear, more like calculation, like, how much did he hear? I smiled, not a warm smile, a clean one. Hey, I said casually. I'm grabbing my jacket. Jordan turned and smiled too big. "Oh, we were just talking about the year." Mia's eyes flicked over me. "Yeah, growth, you know." Paige nodded politely. Claire forced a smile. "You okay?" That was interesting. Not, "Do you need anything?" Not, "Sorry, we're being loud." Just, "You okay?" Translation, "Are you going to cause a problem?" I opened the closet, grabbed my jacket, and held it like it mattered. "I'm great," I said, "just trying to be normal." Jordan giggled again. Mia smirked. Claire's smile stayed frozen. Paige's eyes narrowed slightly, like she noticed something she didn't like. I turned to leave, then paused. Just one little pause. "I love the theme," I said, gesturing vaguely at the room. "New year, new, everything." Claire blinked. "What?" "Oh, nothing," I said lightly. "Just enjoy your girls' night. Choose wisely." And I walked away before anyone could ask what that meant, because I didn't need to explain it. People who are being honest don't panic when someone overhears the truth. Back in the office, I closed the door fully this time, and I sat down. My hands were steady, my breathing was steady, but my thoughts were clean in a way they hadn't been for a long time. I didn't feel like begging. I didn't feel like pleading. I didn't even feel like arguing. I felt something colder. Not hate, not rage, just clarity. They weren't planting ideas in her head. They were watering something that had already been there. And now I wanted to see something. I wanted to see what she did in the quiet. When no one was clapping, when no one was calling her brave, when it was just us, a house full of blinking lights, and the truth we'd been avoiding. Because the thing about choosing yourself is, it sounds noble, until you realize you're choosing yourself over someone who was choosing you every day. I leaned back and exhaled through my nose. Slow. Then I opened a blank note on my phone and typed a sentence I didn't know I'd ever type. Let her have space. Let her show you who she is when you stop carrying the weight. I stared at it for a second. Then I locked the screen, and I listened to the laughter in the other room. My wife's laughter. And for the first time, it didn't make me feel loved. It made me feel replaced. The morning after the girls' night, Claire woke up like nothing had happened. No awkward silence, no guilt, no weird overcompensation hugs. She moved through the kitchen calmly, pouring coffee, humming like we hadn't just hosted a quiet brainstorming session titled, How to Emotionally Rebrand My Husband. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I replied. She slid a mug toward me. "I've been thinking." I took a sip. "That sentence has never led to anything inexpensive," she sighed. "I'm serious. So am I. Continue." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, defensive posture, pretending to be casual. "I just feel like I need space." There it was, clean, polite, professionally vague. I nodded. "Okay," she blinked. "Okay?" "Yes," I said. "Space granted. No application required." That wasn't the reaction she expected. She was waiting for resistance. Something she could label as pressure. Something to justify the narrative forming in her head. "You're not even going to ask what I mean?" she said. "I know what you mean," I replied. "You want distance without consequences." Her jaw tightened. She'd expected a certain reaction. Maybe sadness, maybe pleading, maybe a dramatic wounded why, followed by a series of emotional texts to Mia. Instead, she got calm. "That's not fair. Neither is asking me to slowly disappear while pretending it's self-discovery," I said calmly. "I'm not saying we're done," she said quickly. "I'm saying I need breathing room." I nodded. "Okay," she blinked. "Okay?" "Okay," I repeated. "You want space. You can have it." "That's it?" she asked. "That's it," I said. "I'm not going to argue someone into wanting me. That's not romantic. That's a hostage negotiation." Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, then she shut them again. She didn't like how easy I made it. Over the next few days, Claire became a walking inspirational quote. She started waking up earlier, going for walks with earbuds in, coming home flushed like she'd just outrun her old life, smiled at her phone more than at me. At night, she'd sit on the couch scrolling while I watched something else, the two of us sharing air like roommates. And every time I tried to start a normal conversation, she did that thing where she looked at me like I was asking her to donate a kidney. "So," I said one night, "my mom asked if we're still doing Christmas lunch at her place." Claire didn't look up. "I don't know." "You don't know if we're eating lunch?" She sighed, finally lifting her eyes. "I don't know what I want to do yet." "It's lunch, Claire, not a lifestyle." "That's dismissive," she said. I nodded. "Okay. Is it dismissive because I'm wrong, or because it makes this sound ridiculous?" She stared at me for a long second. Then she went back to her phone. "I just need time," she said. Time. Space. Breathing room. It was like living with an astronaut who refused to admit she'd already boarded the shuttle. I stopped asking follow-up questions, stopped checking in, stopped filling the silence, not out of spite, out of curiosity, because I wanted to see something. Her friends were suddenly everywhere. Not physically, no. They weren't doing our laundry or paying our bills. They weren't cleaning the kitchen or dealing with my father's subtle jokes about marriage. But digitally? Oh, they were present. Her phone would light up constantly, and every time it did, her shoulders relaxed. Her mouth softened, like reassurance delivered in emoji form. One evening, I caught her smiling at the screen. "Who's winning the war for your attention today?" I asked casually. She glanced up, smile fading instantly. "Mia." "Of course," I said. "How is the anchor removal program going?" Claire's eyes narrowed. "What?" "Nothing," I said smoothly. "Just asking. I love personal growth." Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away. That tiny reaction was my third clue. Because you don't get defensive over nothing. You get defensive over something you don't want to be seen. A few nights later, she came into the bedroom with that rehearsed seriousness again. "Can we talk?" she asked. I looked up from my phone. "That depends. Is this going to be a conversation or a performance?" She rolled her eyes. "Why do you have to be like that?" "Because if I'm not, I'll be the guy who gets surprised on New Year's with a breakup and says, 'Wow, I had no idea.'" Claire's face tightened. "I'm not breaking up with you." "Yet," I said, very calmly. She took a breath. I don't like feeling like I'm expected to be a certain way." "Expected by me?" She hesitated again. "By the role. Wife. Us." I nodded slowly. "So what do you want?" She looked down, fingers twisting slightly. "I want to find myself." I couldn't help it. A laugh escaped me. Not a mocking laugh. A real one. Because the phrase hit my ears like a sitcom catchphrase. Claire's eyes flashed. "What's funny?" I wiped my mouth with my hand. "Sorry, it's just, I didn't know you were lost. Should we put up posters?" "That's not fair," she snapped. "Neither is talking about me like I'm a chain you have to break," I said, tone still even. "But here we are." She went very still. That was the first time she realized I'd heard something. Not everything. I hadn't told her what I heard, but she could feel it. "What did you hear?" she asked quietly. I shrugged. "Enough." Claire swallowed. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes flicked away. Because the truth was complicated, and complicated truths are hard to defend with three-word slogans. "I just think," she said finally, "that sometimes relationships can hold people back." I nodded once. "Sure, sometimes. And I want to make sure," she continued, voice gaining confidence, "that I'm not settling. Settling. Another one. A word that makes your partner sound like a used couch." "Okay," I said. "Then don't." Claire blinked. "What?" I leaned back against the headboard. "If you think you're settling, don't settle. You get one life. Go be the version of you that doesn't resent the person next to you." Her throat bobbed. Why are you acting like you don't care? I smiled slightly. Oh, I care. I just don't beg. Claire stared at me, and I watched her thoughts move behind her eyes like clouds. Because she wanted me to fight. She wanted me to prove her valuable enough to be chased. And I wasn't going to play that game, not because I was cold, but because I respected myself. Silence is funny. At first it feels luxurious, like a hotel room you didn't pay for. No questions, no expectations. No one asking how your day was in a tone that secretly meant report to me. Claire loved it, at first. She leaned into her space like it was a personality upgrade. Longer walks, more time alone, fewer shared meals. The house started feeling bigger, like it had been quietly expanded while we weren't looking. Her friends were still there, technically, just slower, less enthusiastic, less present. And that's the thing about people who hype you up during emotional revolutions. They're great at lighting the match, terrible at staying for the fire. One evening I came home later than usual. Not late, just late enough to break the routine. Claire was on the couch, legs tucked under her, phone in hand. The TV was on, muted, a show she wasn't watching. She looked up when I walked in. "Oh," she said. "You're home." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you think I moved out?" She shrugged. "I didn't know. That was new." I hung my jacket. "Long walk?" She nodded. "Yeah." "With Mia?" She hesitated. "No, she was busy." "Jordan?" "Also busy." I smiled slightly. "Paige?" She sighed. "Everyone doesn't need to be available all the time." "No," I agreed. "That's kind of the point of space." She shot me a look. "You don't have to sound so pleased." "I'm not pleased," I said. "I'm observant." That annoyed her more than anger ever could. Over the next few days, the cracks started showing. Nothing dramatic, no breakdowns, no sobbing in the shower, just irritation. She started asking small questions again, casual ones, tests really. "Did you eat already? Are you working late tomorrow? Are you still going to the gym so much?" I answered honestly, briefly, without explanation. "Yes, probably, yes." She didn't like that. One night, she tried harder. We were both in the kitchen. I was making myself dinner, just for myself. She watched from the counter like she was waiting for an invitation that wasn't coming. "You didn't ask if I wanted any," she said. I didn't look up. "You didn't say you were hungry," she scoffed. "You used to ask." "I used to do a lot of things," I said. "Then you asked for space." She opened her mouth, closed it. Then, sharper. "So this is punishment?" I finally looked at her. "No, this is compliance." She hated that answer. Because punishment implies emotion. Compliance implies control. A few days later, she tried something different. Control. Not obvious control, emotional control, the subtle kind. She dressed nicer one evening, not for going out, just nicer. Makeup done, hair intentional. She leaned against the doorway of the office while I worked. "You seem fine," she said. I glanced up. "I am." "That's weird," she said. "Is it?" She crossed her arms. "Most men would be freaking out right now. Most men confuse panic with love," I replied. She stepped closer. "So you're just okay with this? With you figuring yourself out?" I asked. "Absolutely." "With us drifting?" she pressed. I leaned back in my chair. "That depends. Are we drifting? Or are you rowing away and annoyed I'm not swimming after you?" Her eyes flashed. "You're being cold." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being accurate." She stared at me like she was trying to find the crack, the insecurity, the place where she could insert doubt and regain leverage. She didn't find it. That night, she pushed harder. In bed, lights off, she turned toward me. "Do you still want me?" she asked. There it was, not love, not partnership, validation. I turned my head slightly, meeting her eyes in the dark. "Yes," I said. "I just don't need to prove it." Her breath hitched. "That's not an answer." "It is," I replied. "It's just not the one you wanted." She rolled onto her back, frustrated. You're acting like this doesn't matter. It matters, I said. That's why I'm not chasing. I won't turn myself into an option just so you can feel desired. Silence filled the room again, heavier this time. The next day, she snapped over something small. I forgot to replace the paper towels. You don't care anymore, she said suddenly. I looked at her. About paper towels? About us, she said, voice sharp. I took a breath, slow, measured. This is what you asked for, I said. Distance, independence, room to breathe. I didn't ask you to disappear. I didn't disappear, I replied. I stopped hovering. She shook her head. You're enjoying this. I smiled slightly. No, I'm learning from it. She stared at me, chest rising and falling faster. Because now she was feeling it. The quiet, the lack of reassurance, the absence of someone constantly adjusting himself to keep her comfortable. That evening, I caught her staring at the Christmas tree. Lights blinking, ornaments still, no music playing. You okay? I asked. She hesitated. This year feels different. Yeah, I said. It does. She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time in weeks, I saw something familiar in her eyes. Fear, not of losing me, of being alone with the choice she'd already made. And I knew, deep down, that New Year's Eve wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be a conclusion. New Year's Eve arrived dressed as optimism, music, champagne, laughter that was just a little too loud. The house filled up quickly. Friends, acquaintances, people who liked us as a concept, the kind who say things like, "You two are such a strong couple," without having any idea what that strength is actually made of. Claire floated through the room in a fitted dress and a practiced smile. Not unhappy, not happy either. Focused. Like someone walking toward a decision they'd already made but hadn't said out loud yet. Her friends were there, of course. They circled Claire subtly, like emotional security guards. I stayed calm, polite, present. That drove Mia insane. She kept trying to catch my eye, like she wanted to provoke something. A reaction, a scene. Something she could later summarize as toxic behavior. I smiled back every time. Nothing scares a manipulator like a man who refuses to play the role. As midnight crept closer, the room got louder and the conversations got shallower. Someone started a countdown practice. Someone else spilled champagne and laughed like it was symbolic. Claire drifted closer to me, not touching, just close enough to make it clear this conversation was coming. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded. Sure. We stepped into the kitchen. The noise dulled instantly, like someone had lowered the volume on a life we were about to exit. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I stayed standing. She took a breath. I've been thinking a lot. Of course you have, I said gently. I don't think I can start another year like this, she said. I need something different. I nodded slowly. Different how? She swallowed. I want to start the year choosing myself. I think, she continued, gaining confidence, that you're a good man. Just not for the path I'm on anymore. I tilted my head slightly. And when did you decide that? She hesitated. It's not about a moment. It's about growth. Right, I said. Growth. That thing that only happens when one person stays still and the other one upgrades. Her eyes flashed. Why do you always do that? Do what? Turn everything into a critique. I'm not critiquing, I replied calmly. I'm clarifying. She sighed, frustrated. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I smiled faintly. You're ending a marriage 5 minutes before midnight. I think hard is built in. She looked away. Behind us, laughter burst from the living room. Someone shouted something about resolutions. Claire looked back at me. I don't want this to be ugly. Then it won't be, I said. As long as we're honest. She nodded. I just don't want to feel held back anymore. I studied her face. The tension, the rehearsed calm, the faint tremor under it all. Then I spoke. Slowly, clearly. I didn't think you'd fall for small provocations dressed up as advice, I said. But if you truly believe this is what you need, I won't stand in your way. Her eyes widened slightly. I don't need to be with someone who had to be convinced not to value what we built, I continued. And I'm not interested in auditioning for my own marriage. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I let the silence stretch, then finished quietly. I'll help you start fresh. I'll leave. The words landed heavier than any shout ever could. Claire froze. What? She whispered. I'm not going to cling, I said. I'm not going to argue. And I'm definitely not going to stay where I'm being measured against slogans. She shook her head. That's not what I meant. It is, I said gently. It's just not how you expected it to go. Her breath quickened. I thought we'd talk, maybe take time. We did take time, I replied. You used it to decide. I used it to accept. She stared at me like the ground had shifted under her feet. Because in her version of this story, I was supposed to resist. I was supposed to fight. I was supposed to make this dramatic enough to justify her leaving. Instead, I was done. We rejoined the party. No announcement, no tears, just two people standing side by side, suddenly very separate. The countdown started. 10. Claire stood rigid next to me. 9. Mia glanced over, sensing something. Jordan leaned in, whispering urgently into Claire's ear. 8. Claire looked at me. 7. I met her gaze calmly. 6. Her eyes searched my face for regret. 5. She didn't find it. 4. Fear crept in instead. 3. Paige looked away. 2. Claire reached for my arm, then stopped herself. 1. Cheers exploded. Confetti, kisses, champagne, a new year. I picked up my coat from the chair. Claire stared at me, stunned. You're leaving? She asked, barely audible over the noise. I nodded. You wanted a clean start. Don't let anyone tell you this was bravery, I said quietly. Bravery stays. This was just encouragement. Then I stepped past her and walked out. Outside, the cold air hit my face like clarity. Fireworks cracked in the distance. I stood there for a second, hands in my pockets, breathing in the quiet. Behind me, the door opened. Laughter spilled out, and I heard it. Mia's voice, soft, triumphant. See? It worked. Another voice, Jordan's. This year is yours. Claire didn't answer. I smiled to myself, not because it hurt less, because I finally understood something important. Some people don't want happiness. They want applause. 3 months passed. That's the magic number, by the way. 3 months is when people stop asking, "Are you okay?" and start assuming you are. That's when sympathy expires. That's when the confetti gets vacuumed up. That's when the applause dies and real life clears its throat. It took her 3 months. Not because she didn't feel regret before, but because regret doesn't work on a schedule. It works on silence. The first month was loud, new habits, new routines, new confidence that needed to be seen. The second month was quieter, less posting, fewer distractions, more empty evenings. By the third month, there was nothing left to drown the questions. That's when my phone buzzed. Claire. Hey. I don't even know how to start this. I looked at the message without urgency. 3 months changes a man. Not in a dramatic way. In a structural one. You stop waiting. Another message followed almost immediately. I've been thinking a lot about us. Of course she had. That's what happens when there's no one left to confirm your version of events. I didn't reply, not to punish her, but because I wanted to see the whole thought. People reveal more when they're not interrupted. A minute passed, then another. Then the real message arrived. I made a mistake. I thought I was choosing myself, but I was just running away. We were good together. We can still fix this. I smiled faintly. People use that word when they want to rewind time without taking responsibility for pressing play. I waited before answering. Then I typed, 3 months ago, you didn't think anything was broken. The dots appeared, stayed, then vanished. Another message. I know I hurt you. I didn't understand what I was losing until it was gone. I miss you. I miss us. There it was again. Miss, not love, not respect, absence. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. This wasn't tempting, it was clarifying. I replied, "You didn't lose me. You let go." Then her response came slower this time. Careful. I was scared. I didn't want to feel stuck. I thought you'd fight for me. There it was, the expectation, the unspoken contract. I typed back without hesitation. I don't fight to stay where I'm being questioned. She replied, "So that's it? After everything we had?" I looked at the message and realized something important. She wasn't asking for me. She was asking for the version of life that felt easier when I was in it. I answered, "What we had required two people choosing it." You stopped. The dots appeared again. This time they stayed longer. I thought time would make things clearer. It only made me realize how much you did, how stable everything felt when you were there. I replied, "Stability feels invisible until it's gone. That doesn't mean it wasn't real." Then one last message. "If I asked you to come back, would you?" That was the moment, not the dramatic one, the honest one. I stared at the screen, feeling no rush, no anger, no satisfaction, just certainty. I typed, "No." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then a final message. "I understand." And for the first time, I believed her. I put the phone down and didn't check it again. Because here's the truth no one likes to admit. Some relationships don't end because of betrayal. They end because one person needs to feel chosen, and the other refuses to audition. She wanted reassurance. I wanted respect. They look similar at first. They aren't. They told her choosing herself would feel powerful. It did. For a while. Then it felt quiet. And then it felt lonely. As for me, I didn't leave to teach her a lesson. I left because I refused to rebuild something with someone who needed 3 months of absence to see my value. Some men fight to be picked. Others step away and let time answer for them. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.